Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into a novel that, well, it really made waves in 2024. Critics, readers, everyone seemed to agree it was something special, definitely more than just your average thriller. I'm talking about Liz Moore's The God of the Woods. I mean, when you see a book hitting the New York Times notable books list, getting named People magazine's #1 book of the year, plus all the buzz on NPR, you know it's doing something different. That's really what people mean by literary suspense, isn't it? So our mission today isn't just to, recap the plot. We want to dig into why it works so well. We're going to look at its structure, which is pretty intricate. The setting, this amazing Adirondack backdrop that feels alive, and the really powerful themes Moore weaves into this mystery, and the hook, the core premise, it grabs you right away because it's built on this chilling echo from the past. It kicks off early one morning, August 1975. 13-year-old Barbara Van Laar disappears from her bunk. She's at this very exclusive summer camp, Camp Emerson. But here's the twist that makes it terrifying. This has happened before to the same family. 14 years earlier, back in 1961, Barbara's older brother, Bear, he was only 8, he vanished in almost the exact same way.
Yeah, that double tragedy is absolutely central to the heart of the novel, and it dictates that complex structure you mentioned. Moore isn't just asking you to solve one mystery. She's asking you to solve two, and crucially, to figure out how or even if they're connected. Or is it just, horrific luck? And both times, it's a child from the Van Laar family. They're incredibly wealthy, this sort of dynasty. And it's significant that they don't just send their kids to Camp Emerson. They own it. They own a lot of the land around there, too. So to handle that big scope, Moore uses what's called a multi-threaded narrative.
Right, 7 different viewpoints, wasn't it? That sounds, well, it sounds like it could get confusing fast, like trying to follow 7 different conversations at once. How does she pull that off without losing the reader?
It's actually very controlled. Think of it less like 7 totally separate streams and maybe more like 2 main timelines braided together. You've got the early 1960s, which is Bear's story, and then 1975 focused on the search for Barbara. The 7 perspectives are basically windows into those 2 periods. So we hear from Alice Van Laar, the mother, who's, well, she's got her own troubles. There's Louise, a camp counselor, Tracy, a bunkmate, and really importantly, Judy Anteleptak, who's investigating in 75. And the brilliance is how information from the 1961 timeline sort of acts like a time bomb, almost. It gives you, the reader, context and clues that the characters searching for Barbara in 1975 just don't have yet. For instance, learning about Alice Van Laar's early marriage in the 50s completely reframes how you see her react to Barbara's disappearance decades later.
Okay, so instead of just moving straight forward, we're piecing together this huge kind of tragic portrait of the family and the whole community around them. And the 2 mysteries are like these dark anchors in time.
Exactly. That's precisely it. And critics picked up on that. Someone noted it gives the novel the kineticism of a well-crafted miniseries. It balances that deep dive into character with this constant forward-moving tension. You're not just reading passively, you're actively making connections between the past and the present. It definitely asks for your attention, but the payoff is huge.
Okay, so if the structure is how the secrets come out, then the setting is kind of where they're hidden. And here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Because the Adirondack Mountains aren't just, a pretty backdrop. They're practically a map of the power dynamics and the class divisions that underpin the whole story. You really have to picture the geography she creates. There's Camp Emerson itself, by Lake Joan, where the kids disappear. Then, way up high on a ridge, overlooking everything, is the Van Laar family's enormous summer estate. And they named it, this detail is just perfect self-reliance. And then down below, literally in the shadow of all this wealth, is the town of Shattuck. It's very working class, blue collar.
Self-reliance? I mean, what a name, right? It perfectly captures the core conflict, this really bitter class resentment bubbling under the surface between the Van Laars, this dynasty, and the locals in Shattuck. The Van Laars basically own the town, employ nearly everyone. It creates this really stifling atmosphere of dependency, but also like simmering anger. And the physical location of the house, lording it over everyone, as one review perfectly put it, just visually reinforces that social structure. It's a constant physical reminder that all these secrets, these tragedies, they're happening within this bubble of extreme privilege.
And the isolation, too, it adds to that suffocating feeling, doesn't it? These huge, dense forests, the lake. It creates this classic American Gothic vibe. It feels claustrophobic because even though there's all this space, the Van Laars seem trapped by their own history, by the place itself. And this must be where the title, The God of the Woods, starts to gain some meaning, too, right? The woods aren't just trees. They seem to absorb secrets, hide things. They kind of represent nature's indifference, maybe, but also the power of the Van Laar name itself, this generational weight.
Oh, absolutely. The woods function almost like a character in their own right. They hold the town's secrets, the family's traumas. They represent everything wild, untamed. Ultimately, everything that's beyond the control of this wealthy family who think they own and control everything. That contrast, that tension, really elevates it beyond just another mystery in the woods story.
Which leads right back to why it gets labeled literary suspense. It's clearly focused as much on who these people are and the social commentary as it is on just solving the puzzle.
Yes, exactly. Moore uses the mystery plot like an engine, definitely. But the real destination is exploring these much deeper issues. She digs into the family secrets, the generational trauma that builds up when a powerful family just keeps burying its past, thinking money can shield them.
And the 1970s setting isn't just window dressing either. It seems crucial for understanding the women in the story, their specific struggles. We're looking at some really systemic issues around gender back then.
That tension is fascinating because she shows it across the class divide. You've got Alice Van Laar, the matriarch. Okay, she's incredibly wealthy, but she's also struggling. Big time. With alcoholism, addiction, the immense pressure to be the perfect wife and mother in this really restrictive, powerful family, her privilege doesn't save her from falling apart. And then on the other end, you have Detective Judy Teluptak. She's young, she's female, and she's from the town Shattuck, an outsider. She's constantly battling the sexism of the 70s workplace, the disbelief that a young woman could possibly solve a crime like this, especially involving that family. Her fight just to be taken seriously is almost as gripping as the search for Barbara itself.
Wow. So it really feels like everyone, rich or poor, is trapped somehow. By society, by expectations, by the history embedded in that place.
That immersive quality, where everything feels connected and sort of heavy with meaning, that's what led to comparisons with Donna Tartt's The Secret History.
Yeah.
One review said the novel transports readers so deeply into its richly peopled, ominous world that for hours everything else falls away. You really do get lost in it.
Okay, but if the premise Two Missing Kids is so inherently dramatic, why make it a slow burn? Why intentionally slow things down? Doesn't that risk losing readers who just want a fast-paced thriller?
It's a calculated risk, definitely.
Yeah.
But I think it's crucial for what Moore wants to achieve. The book is often called a slow burn, and that feels deliberate. If she just raced through the plot points, you wouldn't get that time inside the characters' heads, all 7 of them. You wouldn't feel the oppressive weight of the Adirondacks or really grasp the depth of that generational trauma. The pacing kind of forces you to sit with the dread, the claustrophobia, the uncertainty that the characters are experiencing. It demands a bit of patience, sure, but that depth is the reward.
Right, so the tension isn't just about finding out what happened, it's psychological, it's thematic. Which brings us to kind of synthesizing the overall reaction. We've got this critically acclaimed, super atmospheric, dual timeline mystery. It's part family saga, part sharp social critique. And people generally love the writing, called it unputdownable. But we do have to talk about the ending, because there seems to be a real split among readers there. Nearly everyone praised the journey, the writing, the atmosphere. But the final reveals specifically, the logistics of how everything gets resolved left some readers feeling, well, a bit disappointed. They described it as maybe not having the huge explosive payoff they expected after such a long buildup, or maybe finding the actual solution a bit too neat, maybe even slightly hard to believe.
Yeah, and that's a classic point of friction, isn't it, between what you expect from purely literary fiction versus a more commercial thriller. Readers who went in wanting a perfectly logical, maybe forensic level solution, really tidy bow on the whodunit aspect.
Yeah.
They were the ones who sometimes felt let down. They wanted the plot mechanics to be the main event at the end. But if you think about the book's larger goals, Moore's focus seems to have always been more on the character study, the social criticism. Maybe the specific how of the solution is less important to her than the act of uncovering the rot beneath the surface, the decades of secrets, the family dysfunction, how privilege allows all that to fester.
So it's like the difference between emotional truth and, say, strict realism. There was that reader quote, "If I want realism, I'll read true crime." That kind of sums it up, doesn't it? The emotional impact of what these characters went through, what they discovered about their families and their community, that was the real climax for many, more so than the nuts and bolts of the crime itself.
And that level of ambition, trying to juggle a compelling mystery with that kind of deep social and historical commentary. That's why people are calling it Liz Moore's most ambitious and wide-reaching novel yet. She's definitely building on themes from Long Bright River, class, family ties, but the scale here feels much bigger, much more gothic.
So wrapping up, we've got this masterful double mystery. It's set in the kind of Gothic isolation of the Adirondacks, structured really carefully to reveal layers of class, gender issues, family trauma. It leaves you thinking less about just who disappeared and more about how a family and a whole community could let those secrets take root and grow for so long.
It definitely makes you look harder at those kinds of closed-off power structures, yeah.
Yeah, and let's just circle back one last time to that title, The God of the Woods. When you first hear it, it sounds pretty ominous, right? Like some dark force in the forest waiting to get the Van Laars.
Right, like something primal and dangerous out there.
But some readers came up with this really interesting, almost counterintuitive interpretation. They suggested the God of the Woods isn't the thing that causes panic, but maybe it refers to the characters who manage to resist panic.
Oh, that's interesting. How so?
Well, they pointed to characters like Barbara, the girl who vanishes but isn't just portrayed as a victim, and Detective Judicata, the investigator who kept her head, stayed professional despite all the pressure, all the obstacles thrown in her way. These were the characters who refused to be overwhelmed by the fear, by the chaos. They seemed to have this kind of inner strength, this mastery over the crisis itself. Maybe that's the real power you can find in the woods.
Huh. That puts a completely different spin on it. Resisting the chaos is the ultimate power.
Exactly. Which leaves you, the listener, with maybe a final thought to chew on. In your own life, when you feel lost in the metaphorical woods, whether it's a crisis, family stuff, just information overload, could maintaining your composure, resisting that urge to panic, actually be the most effective form of power you have? We'll let you deep dive on that one.